Yeah. You and 200 and some others.
Well,
Very popular.
I'm not saying that my neighbors do, but
Mike in the building?
I can't walk up and down the block.
Are you going to ignore that lady with the burning?
You were gonna call? I was gonna send her an email and give her my phone number so you call me.
Well, you're here.
That's okay.
That way it's not.
I'd like to call this village board meeting to order. This is Tuesday, November 12th. If we all stand, we'll have Trustee Kay Janis lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Costa? Trustee DeVivo?
Present.
Trustee Gianna?
Present.
Trustee Sabo?
Present.
Trustee Sweet?
Present.
Trustee Yukich?
Present.
Mayor Daley?
Present. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Yes.
Trustee Sabo, go right ahead.
Item 3, consider for approval of the bid proposal from Utility Dynamics Corp. for the final, second phase of the street lighting retrofit project throughout the village of Homer Glen.
For the final. Run that past us one more time.
Okay, there will be one word change. Instead of final, it'll say second phase.
Second phase of the street lighting retrofit project throughout the village of Homer Glen.
Correct.
Okay, does anybody have a issue with that?
No.
Okay. We will amend the legislation action item number 3 to reflect instead of final, second phase of the street lighting retrofit project throughout the village of Homer Glen. All right, are there any other amendments to the agenda? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of September 24, 2013 meeting?
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich.
Second.
Second by trustee Swees. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the recognition of Eagle Scout Amir Khalif. Amir, please step up to the podium and tell the village board about your Eagle Scout project. You can adjust the microphone to wherever you got to have it there, Amir.
Good evening. My name is Amir from Boy Scout Troop 63. I am an Eagle Scout. Boy Scout Troop 63 is based out of Homer Glen. My Eagle project was completed on October 20th, 2012 at Shady Oaks Camp. I decided on this project when I viewed a family struggling to get their child out of the vehicle, and the family was pulling their child from the vehicle, and they were struggling in the parking lot that I had redone in my project. My project was I had leveled the ground in Shady Oaks Camp. It was a small parking lot off to the side of the camp, and I had cleared some trees and I had cleared some debris and shipped it out with railroad ties, gardening timber, and then had assembled with 30 people to complete this project. It was with Boy Scouts and my family. And that's how I completed my project on September 20th, and I received my Eagle on August 22nd, 2013. And my Eagle Court of Honor was October 20th, 2013. Project.
Thank you, Amir. How about you come on up here and we'll take a picture. And I've got a pen and a pen for you. One last picture here. How about we go into the
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
1, 2. Amir, put your arms down your side. Thank you. 1, 2, great. Thank you.
Oh, those flashes do it to your eyes. Okay, the next portion of this meeting is reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll start out. Veterans Luncheon at Eagle Rock Church. This past Sunday, I spent some time with veterans at Eagle Rock's Church Veterans Day Luncheon. This luncheon was hosted by the church, and there was a great turnout. The room was filled with heroes who served our country through different eras of war and peace. I was very happy to be part of this tribute to their service. Under 159th Street speed limits update. Two months ago, I asked IDOT to lower the speed limit on 159th Street in Homer Glen. IDOT agreed to perform the necessary studies in consideration of my request. I communicated with IDOT this past week inquiring about my request. I've been assured that my speed reduction request is still under review. I wanted to keep the village board and public posted on this important update. Under more great economic development news. Every month seems to bring more good economic development news. The Hallmark store in Homer Glen's Homer Square Shopping Center will reopen in November. The 5,100 square foot store has been purchased by the Curlin family of Hallmark stores. Curlin's is headquartered out of Quincy, Illinois, and is Hallmark's largest distributor. Curlin's owns and operates almost 100 stores in 10 states. We're excited that Curlin is making this important investment here in Homer Glen. Look for the grand reopening here shortly. Under the Long Run Creek cleanup, since our last board meeting, the village and the highway department held a very successful creek cleanup event. I was able to assist staff, ROTC volunteers, residents, and Boy Scout volunteers at the October 26th event. A considerable amount of debris was removed from the creek. It was a very productive day. I'd like to thank Commissioner DeVivo, Village Trustee Marcia DeVivo, the Highway Department staff, and the Village Manager Davis, all of whom joined in the Saturday in the cleanup of the creek. I'd also like to thank village staff members Alex Urick and Heather Kokodinsky, who worked on the project. I'll be reporting soon on our plans for the 2014 creek cleanup projects. By the way, Marcia, I left my hunting pants in your husband's truck, so
Okay.
if you're talking to him, tell him.
Make sure you have them for
Yeah,
this.
tell him I left them there. Under Lockport Homer Glen Fish Food Pantry. A few weeks ago, I brought up the Lockport Homer Fish Food Pantry and explained the importance of this non-for-profit organization to our community. On November 1st, benefits were reduced for many food stamp recipients. After this occurred, I received an email from the Lockport Homer Fish Food Pantry letting me know that they ran out of food one day and had to turn people away. Since then, they have been experiencing diminished food supplies as more people are turning to the Fish Food Pantry for help. I want to reemphasize that area residents depend on this organization to supplement or provide food for their families. If you are able to, please consider making a donation to this worthwhile cause. A list of basic supply needs can be found on their website at www.lockportfoodpantry.org. If you are unable to drop off provisions but would still like to help out, you can donate money through their secure site. All donated money is used strictly for the purpose of food purchasing. Again, their website is www.lockportfoodpantry.org. Under Home Depot rededication ceremony. The village just received notification of Home Depot's rededication ceremony schedule for Saturday, November 16th at 10 a.m. Since village staff and board members have already volunteered their time at the Mike Hike 5K Run Walk event, I have asked village manager to attend as the village's representative. Home Depot has been a valued member of Homer Glen business community for 10 years. We appreciate their continued contribution to our community. I encourage the public to attend the rededication ceremony as they have many activities planned for families, such as bouncy houses for children and demonstrations for products for adults. Under achievements, congratulations to Homer Glen resident Carlin Bradrick for recently being crowned Miss Iowa USA. As many of you know, Carlin's sister Ashley Bradrick was Miss Illinois USA in 2010. Congratulations, Carlin. I would also like to congratulate Homer Glen resident Aubrey Friedrich, an 8th grader at Oak Prairie Junior High, for earning all-state status by placing 12th out of 240 competitors at the Illinois Elementary School Association 2A State Cross Country Meet. Carlin's father, Carlin Bradrick's father, actually sits on our Plan Commission. Under Christmas tree lighting ceremony, on Monday, December 2nd at 7 p.m., the Village of Homer Glen will host the 7th annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony at Homer Junior High, 15711 South Bell Road. Holiday music will be provided by the Homer Junior High School Show Choir with a visit from Santa. We hope to see you all there. And that concludes the mayor's report. How about we start down with Trustee Yukich? Do you have a report, George?
No, sir, not tonight.
Okay, there is no report from Trustee Yukich. Excuse me. Does Trustee Sabo have a report?
Yes, Trustee Sabo has a report.
Go right ahead.
The first topic for the Environment Committee is Homer Glen Lands Day tree planting. And the Environment Committee is pleased to announce that the large celebration maple tree that was planted at the Homer Township Library property on October 25th was donated by Mr. John Tierling of Tierling Nursery. Mr. Tierling attended the ceremony and was very impressed with the event. We are also grateful to Rick Gomez of Instant Shade Tree Planting, Inc. for donating his services to relocate the tree to the library property. Tree inventory and the EAB grant. The Environment Committee will be meeting with Mark Dunneman of Natural Forestry Consultants in December to review his completed urban forestry management plan for the data that has been collected for the tree inventory. At the November meeting of the Environment Committee, the committee was given copies of his draft to review. As part of the process, Mr. Dunneman will be recommending updates to the Homer Glen tree ordinance. As part of the 2014 planning objectives, the Environment Committee will be reviewing the Conservation Design Subdivision Ordinance, which was created in 2006 by a former staff planner of Homer Glen. Some of its objectives are to protect environmentally sensitive land, create open spaces, and preserve our rural character. And I'd like to make an announcement. Here is information that was recently sent by an organization called the Conservation Foundation. Perhaps some people would be interested in attending, and if they are, I can give them information. On November 19th, the Conservation Foundation will be presenting a program about community benefits of green space. The speaker is Jack Pizzo, author of Green and Natural Spaces in Your Community, which explains the benefits of restoration, preservation, and natural areas that people can use and enjoy in and among their neighborhoods. And then a recommendation is being brought forth that there a request for an environmental impact study for the 159th Street corridor. That's my report.
Thank you, Trustee Sabo. Does Trustee Kate Janis have a report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
You know, I'd like to start off by the gruff on my face is not to show that all the grays on my hair is not because I have 4 daughters that sometimes test my wherewithal. but this is, the month of November is No Shave November for Male Health Awareness Month. So with that said, all us males out there, think of our health. And I have my physicals, blood test today, physical next week. I just want to put that out there. That's why I have the beard. But also I'd like to signify another economic situation in Homer Glen that's very positive. On November 29th, Pelican Harry's Bar and Grill will be having their 5th year anniversary celebration. They invite the public during the Chicago Blackhawks game. I believe that game starts at 7, let's just say 7 p.m. They're going to have giveaways of jerseys, Vegas trips, trips to Mexico, TVs, and a free buffet. So they want to welcome all to help them celebrate their 5th year. At this time, Mr. Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you, Trustee K. Janis. Trustee Suisse?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. How about Trustee DeVivo?
Thank you, Mayor. Just my only thing that I'd like to report is I just want to thank the mayor, the staff, village manager, and the volunteers, and the highway department, and everyone who participated in the creek cleanup. It was a great success. A lot of debris was pulled from that creek. We've only scratched the surface, and I do hope that this will become a yearly event. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee DeVivo. Is there a treasurer's report?
No, Mayor, there's not.
Okay, is there a clerk's report?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Does the village attorney have a report?
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any task force chairpersons out there that'd like to say anything? Okay. How about public safety officials? Joe, Mark? Does the village manager have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items. First of all, it's not very often that we get to see Jim Wolkowski here at a meeting. Jim is one of our very good part-time staff members. Jim's here tonight because he has kind of led the charge on the street lighting change-out issue that's on your agenda tonight, so I wanted him to be here to answer any questions you might have. I talk about the staff a lot. We've got a great staff here. Because Jim's not at a meeting very often, he doesn't get an opportunity to hear me say nice things about him, but he's absolutely a vital part of our staff. I really appreciate his service, so thanks for being here, Jim. Also, I have a couple ComEd updates just to let you know about. ComEd, and this is on our village website, so anyone who wants more information can certainly get to it. But ComEd will be performing vegetation management activities starting in late November and through December. Here in 2013, ComEd states that its vegetation management programs help to ensure electric reliability and prevent outages. So on our village website, there are the boundaries of what they're going to be working in this year, and there's also a contact information number for ComEd if you have any questions. The other ComEd item that I'd like to talk a little bit about, people who travel 355 will be noticing here over the next couple months. ComEd has announced that they are going to start their previously announced power capacity expansion project this month. This power capacity expansion project includes a new substation along I-355 and new transmission lines running along I-355. This new power capacity project will be in service in 2014. The new infrastructure will service residents and businesses in New Lenox, Lockport, and most importantly in Homer Glen. The capacity upgrade is being completed to handle the new residential and commercial development that ComEd believes is coming to our area over the next couple years. I will be attending a meeting with ComEd officials on November 19th to discuss the execution of this capacity expansion project, which they actually, of course, initially announced last year, and of course we talked about it at a board meeting, and they gave us a lot of information on that. Finally, for me, I just wanted to thank everyone who, again, was involved in the Long Run Creek program. Both the mayor and Trustee DeVivo talked about it tonight. We had just an outstanding group of young volunteers, in particular, the ROTC, young men and women, and also our Boy Scouts. We had a meeting recently, the board should know. 6 of us sat down from the Township Highway Department and village staff, and we had a wrap-up meeting about the pros and the cons and what we thought went really well and what we would improve upon. And we kind of brainstormed on ideas for next year, and I think those ideas are really exciting. Our administrative intern, Alex Yerk, is working on pulling all that together. He was kind of the spearhead person on this project. And so we'll be reporting back, as the mayor said earlier, he'll be reporting back to everybody about plans for next year. Finally, I just want to turn over to Development Services Director Mike Salamovich, who's going to be giving the board an update on the status of some of our really kind of exciting 2014 stormwater drainage improvement programs. There's some things that just recently happened regarding the 2014 list of projects, and Mike wants to update you on them. So Mike, go ahead.
As the board knows, a couple months ago, the board approved a proposal to go out for engineering services, and we have 7 drainage projects that we're currently working on for 2014. 3 of those projects are actually out for bid right now. We've grouped them together. They went out for bid in the IDOT bulletin on Thursday, and we're looking for the 19th of this month to receive bids, and we're hoping to bring this back to the board at the next board meeting for approval by the board. Basically, the 3 projects are in Old Oak Estates, the detention pond in that subdivision. There's the drainage outfall structure is basically deteriorating and falling off into the creek, so that's going to be restored. There's also some low flow gutters in both the east pond and the west pond, that those are going to be cleaned out, restored, make sure the flow is it's properly flowing in drainage. The next project is the Hunt Club Woods subdivision, the outfall for Scudds Lake, which is the primary overflow for the drainage. Basically, there was some issues where the area was holding water as a mosquito haven. It wasn't flowing properly, so that's going to be regraded, and under drain is going to put in to allow that to drain properly. And obviously, for any kind of low flows, the under drain will take care of that, and then the major flows will go overland. The third project is actually going to be the 151st Street and Parker Road, the detention pond, which is located at the northwest corner of the intersection. As a lot of people see, that during rainstorms and rain events, that pond does see a lot of water. There's a couple different issues that are going on there. One, it receives bypass flows from the farm field on the southwest corner. And then the second thing is there's actually some issues with the drainage structure. The way it was designed, it was actually set too low. So the pond was never really getting to the volume that it was meant to be. So some of those things are going to be corrected. The bypass flows are going to be actually bypassed around the detention pond instead of through it. The outfall structure is going to be raised, so we're going to gain some volume there. We are going to the majority of the trees in the pond will stay, because the second kind of part of this whole project is actually going to be the intersection improvement project, which will follow this. And that's scheduled to go out for bid in February, at the end of February. So some of these drainage improvements will start kind of the drainage improvements for this area, and then the intersection project will complete those improvements. So ultimately, we should see a lot better drainage in this area, a lot less flooding of the 151st Street, and hopefully everything will flow a lot better.
So in addition to those 3 projects that Mike highlighted tonight, there are an additional 4 projects that are part of what HR Green is working on in terms of pulling together plans, and those it's our hope that those projects will also go forward in 2014. So you'll have this great group of 7 solid stormwater improvement programs to add to the very successful improvement that you made in Oak Valley. So. Does anybody have any questions about those for Michael?
Thank you.
Well,
Go ahead,
just
Trustee
a
DeVille.
quick question. On 151st, on the west side, it would be the farmer's field. The amount of debris that comes off of that field, how are they going to address something like that? That's a...
Unfortunately, we can't control, eliminate that, but what they are actually going to do is they're increasing the size of the culverts it's going to be at one point there's going to be a 48-inch storm sewer. There's also going to be a 2-foot by 3-foot box culvert. So those in itself, just the size of those, should greatly help to keep those from clogging up with debris.
Yeah, good.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to say, once again, thanks to all the people that were involved in the creek cleanup. Some of you that didn't witness it moving through town. I mean, we actually had to have a school bus moving people from point to point to point. It was a huge success, and after the fact, I was contacted by quite a few people that said, if I would have known about this, or if I would have seen it, or sign-up sheet, stuff like that, I would have liked to have, my area of the creek behind my house, cleaned up, and I would have helped out and all that. So huge success. Thanks to everybody that was involved. So that concludes reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. Next portion of this meeting would be public comment. The first speaker would be Mel, if I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry, Benankovich.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mel Banakovich, and I moved to Homer Glen in 1966 with my wife, Mary Lou. Or 2006, yeah, that's right. I live at 14719 Astor Lane in Homer Glen, Amberfield. I'm here tonight because we have 21 homeowners that have signed a petition in regards to our bioswale condition that we have. Now, I understand that this is something that cannot be removed 100% due to the fact that we need the proper cleansing and draining of the water coming from the streets and from all the land. But we have a condition where it's overgrown and it's out of sight. Cosmetically, it is not good. Now, our subdivision was in bankruptcy, and finally, we're out of that. 27 units were sold to Tony Peroni from Greystone Builders. And I've had several meetings with him, and he's been asking on some opinions from some of the people. And he has now contacted NCAP, who was handling the bioswale treatment and burning project. But we never were able to have a burning project on the swale. They did burn down by the detention pond. And as you know, it is very good to burn, but the buildings are too close together. We have decks that are from 41 to 45 feet in the back by the bioswale. And the bioswale was made to go around the property and go from Astor Lane to Clover. Digdon, who was the builder originally, had cut part of the bioswale where the homes were not built yet. As the judge appointed PSI and Madison Realty, Dave Gallowich, to go there, they also cut it. And they left, and we were told we could not touch anything in the bioswale between the houses. There's 3 buildings of homes that have, I call them weeds. They call them deep-rooted plants. Now, I'm not a botanist, and I don't really know the names of them, but I talked to Julie Crane, that was with Conservative Land Steward here once before, and I walked through there with her. Well, she could go and tell you everything about this. And I'm sorry I can't repeat what she told me because I don't remember. It's kind of a complicated thing. But we're asking the village board here if they could reconsider that we could maybe present a plan to make it more cosmetic appearance. I know the new builder, Mr. Perino, he is very concerned because he doesn't like it either. So I've got a petition here for you, Jim, which I'll give to you. And I also have some pictures if I want to give it to the clerk, and I have a statement. Are there any questions?
No, I've been dealing with you on this, and 21 of the 24 occupied homes are in agreement with the fact that they'd like to see this managed at a lower level. They're not asking, I actually talked with these folks again today, they're not asking for the removal of the bioswale. They're asking for a more manicured look to where they don't have to worry about animals in these high weeds that are possibly 6, 7 feet high right now. I shouldn't call them weeds, whatever type of plantings they are. So I think there is a way to, be amicable about this, and it seems as though the supermajority of your residents want it a certain way. And at some point, you are going to be a homeowners association, and at that point, you yourselves, being a private property, will be dictating, what goes on your property. At this point, your homeowners association is not established, as far as I understand. It's you're not at the percentage yet, because Perino, I believe, is at 27 lots. Is that it?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're going to work with you, and we're going to find out if there's any difference between a manicure plant at a lower level or a higher level, as I talk with you today. So we need to get an opinion on that, and we'll get back to you.
I appreciate your time. Who do
Okay.
I give the petition to?
How about you just hand them to the clerk right here?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Okay, the next speaker would be Jeff McCarthy, I believe it is? Okay. Good evening.
My name is Jeff McCarthy. I'm a homeowner in the Wedgewood Highlands subdivision. I'm applying for a variance with regards to my lot, for lot coverage and impervious surface variance. My address is 12254 Shellbark in Ohio. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next speaker would be Mike Steger, is that it? Styler?
I'm here on behalf of McCarthy.
Okay, thank you. The next speaker would be Bernie Kucharski.
My name is Bernie Kuharski, 13730 Long Run Drive. Mayor, Board of Trustees, I was really happy at the last meeting during your workshop to see the discussion about the median, the lighting, that you took the time to find out the costs and everything else. A little upset that nobody knows what it's going to take to maintain. What's the streetlight bill going to be? Who does the maintenance? You have to have a contract with the state. You just pay when one fixture goes out, or is it a monthly bill whether anything is done or not? And the same with the median. Nobody knows, at least I didn't hear, what the cost of maintaining the median may be. $100 a week, $1,000 a week, $100,000. Nobody seems to know. I know it's going to be a good number, and I think maybe the village manager misspoke when he said that the highway department would maintain the trees at no cost. I don't know how the highway department can work at no cost when I know all the fellows at the highway department like to be paid. Somebody has to pay their bill. It will come out of the taxpayers of Homer Township, which Homer Glen is part of. The other subject I have is the leaf burning. I noticed that the permit doesn't match the ordinance. In the ordinance says you can't burn after sundown. We have a lot of neighbors that as soon as it starts to get dark, they're starting their fires and going in the house, and they just sit there and smolder and burn all night long, and you can't find out where the smoke is coming from. Subdivision is full of smoke, but you just can't go start walking through people's yards looking to see where there may be a fire. And most of these fires that produce the smoke aren't ones that have a blaze to burn up the smoke. They just sit there and smolder. And I also noticed that it says that in the ordinance that was in the newspaper that you can't burn on legal or federal holiday, state or federal holidays. On the permit the application, it doesn't quite say that. So you might have to take a little look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. As far as the highway department taking care of the trees, Of course, the people at the highway department get paid. The highway commissioner has stated that it won't be any additional cost. It'll be part of what his services are contracted right now with the Village of Homer Glen. Okay, the final speaker would be Steve Knoll.
Good evening. My name is Steve Noel. I live at 12249 Thornapple Drive in Homer Glen in the Wedgewood Highlands subdivision. My property backs up to the property for the McCarthy Pool. I attended the recent zoning commission meeting where the pool was discussed, and it was kind of a split decision. It was in the favor of it to be approved, but it was in a split decision. And there was some concerns. My major concern is not so much about the pool. He's well within his rights to have the pool. My concern with the pool is what's going to happen with the pool if it does create a flooding issue. We already have flooding issues on the property, on his property, as well as my property, as well as several other adjoining properties. And that was all just seemed to, by the zoning commission, was just said, well, we're going to allow him to build the pool. And my concern is if it does create a situation, I have no legal recourse with which to go after that it be done properly. So I'm attending the meeting again this evening to voice my concerns that if you do approve the pool, that there be some kind of conditions put upon this, that all of the proper steps are being taken to protect the adjoining properties from creating additional flooding. It's not as if there's no flooding there currently, because there is. The condition is that it gets even worse than it already is. The flooding has been there since I've lived there. I built my home in 1996. It's been an issue. The builder originally was allowed to take shortcuts on the drainage for the entire subdivision. There are only storm sewers at the end of each of the streets. It's several hundred yards apart. And our properties happen to be at the crown of the street. We're at the highest point within the subdivision, yet we have flooding issues because the grade doesn't follow properly from the highest point to the end of each street. So there is quite often standing water on the property and water right below the surface. In fact, during the zoning meeting, I mentioned that when Comcast came to do some work, all of it was underwater. And there hadn't been rain in 4 or 5 days prior to that, and it was a good 1.5 feet of water inside the utility connection box. So it continues to be an issue. My concern is that the flooding will continue or get worse and have a direct effect on my property values and property values around us, because if someone comes to look at the property and walks the property and starts to sink in the mud behind the property, they're not going to be happy with that and be concerned that there's going to be a flooding issue. So as you guys go through and discuss the issues of the zoning, I'm just looking for protection for the adjoining properties that doesn't allow him to create a situation and make it worse than it already is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes public comment. The next items on the agenda are legislation and action items. This would be I-1. Is there a motion to approve a recommendation to name the village's new park in Erin Hills subdivision, the Erin Hills Park?
So moved.
First by trustee DeVivo. Second by trustee Kay Janis. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo.
Aye.
Trustee Kajana.
Aye.
Trustee Sable.
Aye.
Trustee Sweet.
Aye.
Trustee Yukic.
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be I-2. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 13-059, an ordinance granting a variance for the size, the height, and the number of tenant panels and the building materials of a freestanding sign in the C1 Neighborhood Commercial Zoning District for the subject property located at 13001 West 143rd Street, Homer, Glen, Illinois. Peak Properties is the name. It is understood this ordinance provides a variance for the total height of the sign from a district maximum of 10 to 34 feet, the total size of the sign from the district maximum of 33 square feet to 150 square feet, the building materials of the sign from the permitted brick or stone to aluminum, and the number of tenant panels on the sign from 4 to 6.
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich, second by trustee DeVivo. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk,
I
please.
had a question.
Go ahead, trustee Sabo.
On the photograph where it does show the new sign, the new proposed sign, please explain why the sign, there is so much room between the bottom of the tenant sign down to the, where it is grounded, this section here.
Right.
Is
know what
there
it-
a reason for it having to
is.
have such a high stem?
There is, and it's a very good question. Thank you for asking. It's for truck clearance, because unlike most signage of this nature in the community, there happens to be an access road right there in front of the sign, which is very unique. Typically, a sign of this nature would have land in front of it, like you think of the Meijer and the Home Depot sign. It's just surrounded by land, there's no road in front of it. So this actually has a road in front of it, so it's for truck clearance. As a matter of fact, it was a topic of some considerable discussion at the Plan Commission, and I think they had him raise it a little, the bottom panel, so that there'd be even more truck clearance, because they were concerned about that. So that's the reason for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any further questions? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Pajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's see here, I3, is there a motion to recommend approval of the proposal from Utility Dynamics Corp. for the second phase of the street lighting retrofit project in the amount of $71,168? It is understood that this amount includes the base proposal of $62,976 plus $8,192 for 16 additional fixtures to be retrofitted, which were not originally included in the RFP, but are within the overall project budget form line item 70-00-85-635.
I so move.
First by trustee Sabo,
I second.
second by trustee Sweez. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, trustee
just-
Sweez?
Thank you, Jim, for all your hard work on this. It was greatly appreciated, and especially, and the sample in the back, that was thank you.
Okay, trustee Sabo, I believe you want to say something?
Yes, being passed around is a sheet of paper that explains the schedule, and I would like it to get all the way to Jim Walkowski. Is it down at the end right now?
Here, Jim.
There it goes, okay.
Go ahead, trustee Sabo.
Okay. I want to thank Jim Walkowski for doing a wonderful job. It takes a lot to work with people and get good prices. I think that he did an outstanding job. If you look at this sheet that has just been passed around, you will see that there were, starts with 2009 and goes to 2014. The first phase was the Cobra lights, which had a drop lens, and that was corrected to the flat lens. Actually, it was a better light, it's a better spread, it is energy saving. The second phase was the post tops, and you see that 2011 to 2014, they were done so many in each year. But what the manager had expressed was, why not take all 3 years and do it, a budget for that. There are 138 lights, post-top lights, and the example that you all saw was out in the back. It's a very efficient light. It doesn't light so that you look at, it doesn't light up, it doesn't light sideways, it lights where the light is supposed to be. It is not a ball of light as you see the others on the street and back. In fact, the light is fully shielded, it's brighter, it's more efficient, does not light up the sky, has lower wattage, less glare, and has a better distribution of light. However, when this study or this inventory was done, and it was very detailed, it took a lot of days to do that, and this was done by members of the Environment Committee. Some post tops at that time were not, had not been accepted, or I should say the streets had not been accepted at that time. So there are still 115 post tops that Jim Wilkowski has counted that need to be retrofitted. And so that's why I amended the agenda to say the second phase, because that's what it is. We are not complete with this, and asking that in the 2014-2015 budget that there be money allowed for that.
Okay, and this is why you amended the motion.
Right.
This is what was in this budget. So we're spending what we
Right.
can spend this year on this budget.
That's right.
And we will look to the next budget to try to allocate money to also retrofit additional lights.
Yeah, that's correct. And
Okay.
so I wanted to explain that.
Okay.
And the most efficient fixtures are the Cobra type. Their parts are easy to find. They're very efficient. And then there's another, if you look at the last line, there's Lumic flat lens. The ones that there is one example of a Lumic flat lens at the Cedarbrook subdivision. The rest of them at that subdivision are 14-inch drop lenses. That means the glass actually drops down 14 inches. It's a fancy light, it's very expensive, but it is, we have been looking into ways to retrofit it in a very efficient manner. So that is another thing to consider, since
Okay.
we are the fourth international dark sky community in the world. So,
And just, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Trustee
for the-
K.
And just for the record here, so we understand, this proposal here for consideration for expenditures was embarked in 2010 for a certain amount of money for a certain amount of lights. Going forward for the next budget year of 2014, 2015, it has not been appropriated yet for the next, that's been referred to in the amendment. There was an amendment made to the agenda for a second phase. So actually, we're dealing with the expenditures on what was approved back a few years ago, correct?
For the prior year's budget, this is what we have in it to be able to
Okay.
retrofit. As Trustee Sable's talking about, is as we move forward, this is not the final phase because there are additional light fixtures that have to be retrofitted. So as we can afford it, we'll put it in the budget and we'll get these things retrofitted out. So is that
Yes,
clear enough?
I just want to clarify that.
Okay, is there any
For the record.
further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Sable?
aye.
Trustee Sluis?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee K.
Aye.
Janice?
Motion carries. This would be I-4. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 13-060, an ordinance granting number one, a variance to permit a reduction of the required first floor masonry materials of an accessory structure. Two, a variance for the size of an accessory structure. 3, a variance for the setback of an accessory structure, and 4, a variance for lot frontage from the applicable regulations of the zoning ordinance for the property commonly known as 17332 South Parker Road, Homer Glen, Illinois, Wayland property, conditioned upon the property never being subdivided unless the owner or successor owner receives approval from the village in accordance with the requirements of the village's subdivision ordinance in effect at the time of the request.
I so move.
First by trustee Sabo, second by trustee Yukich. Any discussion? Madam Clerk,
I
please.
do.
Go ahead, trustee Sabo.
So all the requests that the property owner is asking for are in this motion to be approved? Okay. I wanted to, and this property is one of the properties that's a flag lot, but a lot of these properties, they're large properties. I think a while ago with the zoning change, or a lot of zoning changes, that agriculture or R1, larger properties like that, had more stricter setbacks than they had under Will County. So this isn't the first time we've run into this with a property wanting to have a variance with the setbacks. I'm very familiar with a property that that had such a deep setback that putting a building there would actually block would actually block the view, and it didn't seem to even make sense at the time. So I'm glad to see that all of these would be granted, because this is really out in the country. I don't think much around there where this is. But I do have a question about page 5 that says there is a 33-foot Parker Road right-of-way that exists on the property. The board can add a condition on to the approval requiring the dedication of this road right-of-way. This is not currently included in the motion or ordinance. And I just wondered why this is being thought of, and what are the pros and cons on this?
It's being thought of because you have done it in the past on occasion, but not in every instance. Okay, so we have brought this up before. You've actually approved within the past year, I think, one with the road right-of-way taking that we took, didn't we? This was this past year? For a home, yeah. So you've done it previously, and so every single time we'll probably raise it. It's an opportunity to secure it if you so choose to secure it. It's a policy decision.
Okay, but nothing's happening with it now.
We did not make it, we did not recommend to make it contingent, but if you want to, you can add it at this time if you'd like. It's a policy decision. You haven't always done it. You have done it occasionally. So.
I'd just like to think about it more and not include it at this time.
Okay.
Okay.
The reason it's on there now is because when a property owner comes before you, asking for basically a favor, variances, right? A special consideration. This is your time to secure it if you so choose. That's why it's on.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any other statements? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Luciano?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Motion carries. This would be I-5. Is there a motion to direct the mayor to respond to IDOT's request for direction by notifying IDOT that the village would like the final 159th Street plans to include landscape medians, taking into consideration the request as outlined in the attached letter from the village?
I so move.
First by trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I just wanted to point out that I had asked if trustee Sabo and trustee Suisse and the Environment Committee would take on the task of coming up with a list of trees that we could attach to the letter that you're considering sending tonight. I believe that they distributed that earlier. So you have it. It's a list that we're going to encourage IDOT to utilize to make sure that the
That's-
tree stock along 159th is as diverse as possible. So I appreciate them coming up with that. We would attach that letter to the, that memo to the letter you're
Great.
considering.
Okay,
Can I make comment?
go right ahead.
Okay, I'm just directing this to the manager. You had said to come up with 10 trees.
Right.
And the Environment Committee was very thorough, had done research, Googled a lot of trees, and had a tree book there for reference. Both recommendations, or combined recommendations, are in here from Roger Ross, our tree arborist, and also from Mark Dunneman, who is working on the tree survey. We could not honor just 10 trees for the following conditions. We want the median to look colorful, to look different, not to be monotonous. And so the Environment Committee chose 16, and based on these two gentlemen, and recommended 16 trees for these reasons. The forestry guidelines suggest planting no more than 10% of any one species in a project area. This is a standard known guide. The increased number with 16 would help avoid planting more than 10% of any one species. It also gives a variety to the area. The second one is depending on availability. Sometimes these may not be available. The increased number provides more choices if needed. And then the next one, increasing the number provides a variety of understory trees, medium, and large trees. Last one, the redundant linear planting of the same species is out of character for our area. The following list of 16 is a healthy mix of high-quality species, not commonly planted or overused, but chosen for extreme environments like highway medians. And there are other pages here that show factors and design considerations that both of these gentlemen have referenced in their letters. So IDOT, and I'm going to ask the question, IDOT then decides on how these trees or any other plant material are put together. Is that correct?
Right, they have a staff of their own experts that put these plans together, and we're going to try to go meet with them. The mayor's letter encourages that, to include us in the process. And this letter that the Environment Committee has put together and is going to be attached is just our effort to try to encourage them to make the tree stock more diverse and to give them some examples. So.
Okay.
Variety is the spice of life, but I'll tell you one thing, cost is the reality. So the IDOT, in my opinion, probably with all their roadways that they do and everything that they do, they buy these trees in bulk. So they're going to do, they're going to take your recommendations into consideration, maybe be able to accommodate you a little bit, but I highly doubt you're going to tell them every tree is going to be this, that, the next thing, so.
I'm not interested in designing this.
Okay.
Not one bit. But I am, if they are asking for trees.
They've got a whole list from you. That's.
That
I
they're asking
appreciate
for
that.
this list, that they hope that they would honor these trees because they've been acknowledged by professionals.
Okay.
In one of the, I believe it's Mr. Dunneman, is saying that some of these trees could be grouped. I know in the letter to IDOT, it says to plant on 30 or 40 feet apart, so, which could be very monotonous. But anyway, that's my comment.
Okay.
We'll talk about all those issues when we meet them.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Yukic?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you for your input, Margaret. This would be I-6. Is there a motion to direct the mayor to respond to IDOT's request for direction by notifying IDOT that the Village of Homer Glen would like the Phase 2 design of 159th Street Improvement Project to include one of the following options. A, intersection street lighting only at Parker Road, Bell Road, and South Bell Road, as well as the roadway between the two Bell Road intersections at an estimated cost of $450,000. Or B, intersection street lighting only at Wilcook Road, Parker Road, Bell Road, and South Bell Road, as well as the roadway between the two Bell Road intersections at an estimated cost of $675,000. It is understood that neither option commits the village to paying the full amount of the intersection lighting and design costs, but does provide direction to IDOT for Phase 2 design and cost estimate procedures purposes.
So moved.
First by trustee Kajanis,
Second.
second by trustee DeVivo. Is there any discussion?
So Mayor, now as a part of that motion, what we need you ultimately to do is to pick one of those two choices and then have the maker and the second agree to whichever of those two that you want to pick. In summary, they don't differ much. The only decision that you're making between those two choices is whether or not you light the intersection at Wilcook Road. So, a little bit of information to add to what's in your supplement sheet. Orland Park actually controls most of that intersection. It's on their side. They've made a decision not to light that intersection because it is far removed, obviously, from the development activity of that community presently. So they're not going to light it. So then our choice is, well, could we light just our side? And IDOT says no, they won't allow it. We've, I think, told you this before over the 5 times that we've talked about these things. They won't allow just one side of the intersection to be lit. The whole intersection is lit or none at all. So the reason that we put that on there, realizing that it is a good sum of additional money, is if that light intersection is not lit, it will be markedly darker than it is today. Because remember, some of the lights that are along 159th Street that currently exist will be removed. So obviously, we have a growing concentration of commercial development right down there, not just the speedway,
Right,
but
and
the
here,
headquarters. So
here's.
those are the two choices.
Okay, here's my opinion. The intersection has a gas station there that is very well lit. Matter of fact, at times it's been questioned as far as, is it overlit? I mean, I've heard that before. I don't see why you'd spend an additional $225,000 to light that intersection when you have the gas station there, you have Kenwood Liquors there, you've got the preschool there, you're going to have Richard's Supply headquarters right down the street there. I think it's a waste of $225,000. I would recommend that we go with the cheaper option of the $450,000, understanding that that intersection, if you can't find your way around that intersection where you've got a speedway as big as a building, well, it is a building, then you're not going to work your way around town. But how would George? Let's just go right down the lane.
Well, I agree with you there, but then I also have a wonder, why are they doing South Bell Road when they're so close to Bell Road? That's just another waste of money.
I think I don't think that's really a question, our question. I think it's IDOT intends to light that intersection. I think what we're talking about here is where two communities come together, where Cook County meets Will County, and Cook County Orland Park has given their statement that they're not paying for it, period. So if we want it, we're going to have to do the upgrade.
Okay, I would say, I agree, I'd go with A if that's the case.
Okay, trustee Sabo?
Orland Park's trying to save money. I mean, I think we should be saving money. I don't see why we should be lighting an intersection that is partly somebody else's. As far as South Bell Road is concerned, it's the Village of Homer Glen that chooses to light South Bell Road or not. As far as all these lights are concerned, I said at the last meeting, and I said even before that, when we began discussion about lighting, this is a taxpayer's issue. the taxpayers are going to be paying for all this lighting. I mean, we have heard that there's going to be 20 lights possible at an intersection, and which includes 2 directions or 4 directions, and lighting some side streets that don't need to be lit. I know other communities, and I think of Route 30, have worked with IDOT so that they don't have to take these dictates from IDOT. We don't have many choices, but I think that we can be more creative with what we choose. And 20 lights at an intersection is just absolutely overkill.
You're incorrect. There's not 20 lights at an intersection.
No,
What it is it's as you approach the intersection,
Right.
there's lights spaced so many feet apart to give you notice of the intersection, which has lighting at the intersection, but it has nowhere near 20 lights. It's on either side of the street in both directions that may total up to 20 lights, but at the intersection, there's not 20 lights,
Well,
so
you've
that's not correct.
you've explained it. I just had used the short form, yes.
Okay.
It's overkill. And
Well, you either have it or you don't have it, because you don't put the light right here, and you don't have anything that leads up to that light that's right here. The IDOT plan states that if you're gonna have a light right here, you have approaching lighting in either direction, okay, to that light that's here. So in total, when they start a quarter mile away, yeah, you may end up having 20 lights to notify you that there's a street light, and the street light is lit, and there is lighting right there, but it's an approaching system that is IDOT standards. So,
yeah, it's
know.
called a transition, approach lighting.
Yes.
We don't have that now, and you know what? It's not on Route 30, and they finished Route 30, I think, recently. And I think that each of those communities worked with IDOT so that they didn't have this amount of lighting, which is really not necessary. And I'm concerned about all the money that's going to be needed to pay for the lighting, not only the maintenance, but also year after year after year. And I'd like to see if we could work with IDOT to reduce some of these approach lights, not have the lights on the side streets. And if you go down 159th Street now, yes, maybe it needs more lights in certain places. But eyes will adjust. And most intersections will have lights at the intersection, not the approach lights that they are trying to push on us.
Not when you have a road that's coming through that's going to be 2 lanes in each direction with 2 turning lanes in each direction. I disagree with you. But at the same time, Trustee Sabo is asking if IDOT would be willing to
Yes, we've asked the question before.
compromise
because
their standards for the Village
Right.
of Homer Glen.
We've talked about lighting for 4 meetings, with the board, and this was actually answered back, I think, in May of 2012, because we asked them that question. Michael, you want to give them the answer?
Yeah, I mean, basically what happens is, as was noted in the previous memos, they're lighting it to certain standards. Part of what they're doing is they definitely don't want to put lighting directly at the intersection alone. Any leg that's approaching that, they will have approach lights because they want to make sure that they're reducing driver fatigue, any glare issues. So it's intended to kind of acclimate the driver to the lighting as they approach the intersection. So, when we talked to IDOT, again, it was even referring to, say, like the Will Cook intersection, it's either all or none. So they can't reduce or eliminate lighting off of certain legs. They have to do it as an entire entity is how they design it, rather than this leg or this leg.
What do you
Well,
mean by
let's-
total entity?
Basically, what they do is when they design the intersection, they'll determine, it's really going through like a computer program, but basically what they're doing is they're designing the lighting levels at the intersection to meet certain criteria. So the spacing may adjust a little bit, the height of the poles may adjust, basically the arms on the poles, the wattage of the bulbs may change or adjust, but pretty much there's a certain standard as far as what levels per, the candle foot and that they can't go above and below, pretty much similar to kind of how our lighting ordinance was. They have certain requirements that they have to meet, and there's a certain number of poles. Obviously, they're not going to put any more than they have to, but there is a minimum based on the width of the road. That's why you're getting more lights based on the speeds, not so much really the speeds, but really the type of road that you're doing, the type of pavement. All of those things are kind of work together to come up with the number of poles and the locations and that sort of thing.
So the real discussion we're having here then is the A or B is just whether or not we want to pay an additional cost to have lighting at Will Cook Road. The intersections that I'm seeing in A have already been designed for, am I correct, stoplights?
Correct.
Okay. And as part of IDOT's protocol and plan, they have approach lights for any signalized intersection. So we're not changing that. This whole motion is just designed not to go back to the lighting program for IDOT. They've decided where these intersections are going to be, and their standards call for approach lights. Our question here with I-6 is, do we want to pay for the lighting at Will Cook Road?
Well, and I had said no, and I also think that the, how about New Lenox, Mokina, Frankfurt? They were not imposed with these standards. Somehow they did not have to have this kind of approach lighting that is being imposed on Homer Glen.
New Lenox is a totally different animal. You're comparing apples to oranges.
Route 30. I'm talking about Route 30.
Correct, and in certain areas of Route 30, it's not the same layout that is going to take place from Gauger Road to Will Cook Road. They're not the same things. You're comparing apples to oranges.
I think they were.
Trustee K. Janice wanted to say something.
I think that question's over months has been asked and answered. The question at hand is on the motion, whether it be subject A or subject B. I'm leaning towards subject A. I believe that intersection is already distinguished with the gas station. I do believe as you get past the gas station, it's very dark for the businesses that are behind the gas station, but that intersection is, I believe, well enough lit. Coming through there again last night and getting my gas over there on a Drury night, I thought it was well enough lit. As far as the question that has been asked and answered regarding IDOT and national public safety, engineering studies, and IDOT, I believe that question is, again, I'll state, asked and answered on the approaching lights, and I believe IDOT has made their engineering recommendations based on public safety.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, I did get my
Trustee Suisse,
turn.
go ahead.
I spent most of the day talking to engineers and people that work in Mokina, Frankfurt, Orland Park, New Lenox. And I've been getting different stories than I've been hearing here. Approach lighting, because 159th is an IDOT road, yes, you have to have approach lighting if you're going to have a street light at a stop sign. But since we're having transition approach lighting on Bell Road, and that's 3 and 1 in each direction, 3 poles and then 1 on the other side, I don't think it's necessary at all to put lights on South Bell. And according to the 2 other villages, they said, yeah, if you don't kind of stand up for what you want, your side roads, you don't need all of the transitional lighting on a side road because it's not an IDOT road. So I think to save money, we don't need to do the side road, like, say, for example, South Bell and Parker.
Well, what I would recommend then is if you think that,
I mean,
believe-
at least for South Bell Road. I
Well,
mean-
I follow what you're saying. What I'm saying is that if you think that, that IDOT will compromise their standards of what they have to say that one intersection is close enough to the other intersection, so you don't need as much approach lighting as you would normally need, I think that we can direct the village manager and the director of services, Mike Salamovich, to contact IDOT and say, why is this needed? But the real question of the day here tonight, and I will, because of your concern and George's concern and Trustee Sweeze's concern, ask Director Salamovich and also the village manager to contact IDOT about your concerns. But the real question, I guess, here is with the Will Cook intersection, that our neighbors from another county, Cook County, have decided they're not going to pay for it. And I'm saying, I think the intersection is lit enough, and I think I'm getting that feeling from everybody, but we're sort of straying off of the real issue here. Go ahead, George.
Is it possible that we all decide on either A or B tonight, but also I would rather have the trustees get a hold of the state on this? Same thing we did when we went down for the road. You know, the one thing that bothers me the most is, first of all, Illinois doesn't know how to spend their money. They're broke. And they keep shoving more prices down our throat. I think that what we should do is just go back down there again and explain to them, you know, you're not spending your money, you're spending our residents' money. So all it is just trying to dial this down a little bit.
What I could do, George, is I will personally call the director of IDOT and address this issue with him as to exactly what Trustee Swee said and exactly what you said and exactly what Trustee Sabo said. I will put it in writing also so that they understand that we don't understand why we need this overlapping approaching with so many signals so close together, South Bell Road and also Bell Road.
Well, the other thing that didn't make any sense is if they're saying that they have to have a light at every single stop and go light, then why did they tell Orland Park that they don't have to do Will Cook Road?
Right, so
They're-
we don't
they're
need
kind
one
of-
at South Bell. We don't need a light.
Well, the question is the splitting of the cost, you know? If both communities, the way I read it is, if both communities aren't gonna share in the cost, then it isn't gonna happen. We're not gonna pick up one community's cost and
And I
not the
agree.
other's community cost.
I agree.
So, how soon does IDOT need this answer? Cam?
They need an answer, but they don't necessarily need it tonight, but they do need it.
Okay.
So if you don't do it tonight, you have to do it 2 weeks from now.
Okay, then what it sounds like is there's a few questions that lap over into the question about Will Cook. So why don't we just table this thing for right now? And I'd entertain a motion to table. I will contact IDOT with the village manager and find out the actual particulars as to why all this approach lighting has to be made, because approach lighting will actually pretty much go through the intersections.
Before I do the tabling, I would like to get our representatives involved, Kozel and Redonio.
That's fine.
To help, because I think they have helped the other communities along Route 30. What's going to happen in the future is when the 159th Street gets developed, there will be more lighting from the businesses, and there will be businesses, developers will also be putting in lights where they feel that they need them. So pretty soon, we're going to, if we're not careful, we are going to have continuous roadway lighting, and if we're not careful, we will be the next new Las Vegas Strip.
Oh,
Right
please.
here on 159th Street.
Please.
Is it possible we could also
Okay.
add Jim Durkin to that list?
I don't think that's gonna.
Pardon me?
Jim Durkin to that list too, because
Yeah,
Jim would help.
yeah, we can get Jim Durkin too. Okay, so I'm entertaining a motion to table. Is there a motion to table?
I said I would table.
First by trustee Sabo,
Second.
second by trustee Yukich. All in favor, there's no discussion. All in favor of tabling this or the I-6. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Trustee Janice?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Yukic?
Aye.
Motion table. Okay, here's where we're going with this one. We're gonna contact IDOT, we're gonna write them a letter, we're gonna find out specifically about how much approach lighting, and whether it's all needed, if it can be cut back because of two signalized lights that close together. We all on board? Okay.
And contacting our representatives.
And contacting our representatives. Okay, this would be I-7. Whew. Is there a motion approval ordinance to approve ordinance number 13-061, an ordinance granting the lot coverage variance and an impervious surface coverage variance from the applicable regulations of the zoning ordinance for the property commonly known as 12254 Shellbark Drive, Homer Glen, Illinois, known as the McCarthy.
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich.
Second.
Second by trustee K. Janis. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would like to.
Trustee
say something.
Yukich.
With some of the neighbors that are worried about the flooding end of it in the subdivision. It's not the landowner's position to address it. That's something that we could look into, because I know the area because I'm on the same street. And I know it does get flooded back there. We're doing it for other subdivisions, and this one is kind of messy. I've never brought it up because with me being on the board, it's almost like I'm looking for a favor for you guys to do something for my subdivision. But that's not the case. When it does rain, it does pool back there. It's not gonna be due to the pool that you wanna put in, but when it does rain, it does. It doesn't go downhill the way it should. I would think that there should be a pretty simple, easy fix to it, and I would like to see if the village could look into it so this way it addresses all the neighbors' issues at the same time.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Excuse me.
Trustee DeVivo?
I'd like to make a comment on this. I know that sometime back, we decided to allow 50% for pools. And I think that maybe we need to look at that again. After all the rain that falls into a pool, and it probably will actually improve the drainage rather than make it worse. So maybe we change this from 50% to 75%, or maybe we make it 100%. I'd like some input from the board, but I also think that there's a possibility here where if we are going to agree to these types of variances, why isn't staff or the Plan Commission recommending other options to help the flow of the water? Permeable pavers, concrete. Why cover it just with hard surfaces that won't allow water to seep in? There are other things that can be done, and maybe when we do approve things like this, we should be saying, instead of putting concrete all around the pool, use permeable pavers. And that allows for the water to soak into the ground. So,
Okay.
These are some of the things I think that we should be saying. It's up to the board, obviously, to move that forward.
Yeah, because it really isn't the Plan Commission's ideas that come to the board. The board and staff talk together about our ordinances, and the Plan Commission just reviews the existing
Well,
ordinances.
they can recommend,
and
yeah, they
makes
can recommend.
makes a recommendation to the board, and in this case, they have a recommendation. So I think if the board wants to change, so it doesn't have to keep coming through a variance type of process. If the board wants to change coverage for impervious surface coverage, any type of coverage, I think it's the board that needs to make changes in their zoning ordinances, that the Plan Commission just reviews what is the ordinance, of the day. So I would direct Mike and staff to take a look at other communities and see what their lot coverages are. And I know we've done this in the past, and see if they've changed over time, and see if we can't work to make it more amicable for the residents of Homer Glen.
Well,
Mayor, are you
excuse,
talking specifically about pools? Just trying to clarify. You're talking about Trustee DeVivo's question about should the 50% be higher? That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes.
For staff to research.
And-
Thank you.
and the other thing is that, is there some type of sliding scale, something that can be used to say, I'm going to put permeable pavers around this pool, so therefore I can allow for more lot coverage? There's got to be something out there.
Okay, well,
Where
we'll
we
look at
can't
that.
be unique
One
here.
more thing.
And Trustee Yukich, go ahead.
to the comments for Steve, anything that's put in Homer Glen, put up in Homer Glen, done to anything in Homer Glen, we have the best building department in the world here. They do follow up on all the stuff to make sure it does fit the ordinance and the building codes. So they will be checking it out to make sure everything's good.
Okay, are there any further comments?
Well, there've been so many comments here that, are we saying that we should ask this owner to do something more before we vote on this? Or are we just going to say, staff does not recommend this, so are we saying no? I mean,
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm doing is I'm hearing from the board that maybe it's about time that this person is in asking for a variance for a pool. There seems to be an existing drainage situation behind the property, and it has nothing to do with a pool being in or not being in. But what's come in discussion here is, are our lot coverages hampering the ability to use your property? Are we over-regulating what can be done on a piece of property? So I think what we're talking about is it possibly moving towards a workshop for our coverage allowances. And this is a particular situation that doesn't seem to be causing any drainage problem. There happens to be one behind the property when it rains hard, but this is an individual coming in for a pool that's looking for a variance. It's an individual situation. Is there any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Marcia.
Well, it
Marcia,
just,
go ahead.
I would think that someone that has a half-acre lot should be able to really put a pool in. You know, so, I mean, I'm not saying that he shouldn't have this, but I am saying there is a lot of hard surface around this house. And I think that, not necessarily with this property, but we should be looking at something in the future where we do allow for, maybe we don't need it, and this
Well-
many variances if we do something as far as the pool,
Yeah,
the pool is
and
concerned.
you know what, this is the proper time too.
Yeah.
We're moving into
So
the
if-
winter.
Yeah, if the
It's a-
board is willing to do that, then I'd be.
Yeah, it's a perfect time. We're moving into the winter. We can have a workshop on our coverage zonings, and there's not gonna be too many pool inquiries as I saw the snowfall today. So let's move on and review our zoning ordinance. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Pajanis?
Aye.
Trustee Sabo?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck. This would be J. Is there any old business?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Sabo,
I'd like to direct my questions to Mr. Salamovich.
go
And,
right ahead.
I know that we've talked about this before. Talking specifically about the street lights that IDOT will put up. And we talked about flat lens, talked about full cutoff, we talked about the wattage, the type of light, and the color, the Kelvin, or the color correlated temperature. So have you found out specifically what type of fixture there will be and what these details are?
The wattage was, or I believe it was high-pressure sodiums were the type of bulbs. I still don't have the answer on the Kelvin, but I can get that for you.
And that it was full cutoff, I believe.
Yes, they were putting full cutoff fixtures in.
And do you know the color?
That I would have to try to
Okay.
get that information.
Okay, because I hope it would be a more natural light, not a blue light, not a, they're trying to avoid glare so that they would avoid that, the bluer light, the bluer type
Sure.
light.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Well, he still has to find out a few
Okay.
things, so,
You will. Any other old business?
yes.
Okay, Trustee Sabo.
Yes, I'd like to address Amberfield. I believe that I was accused of causing problems in Amberfield that I am not responsible for. The idea of native plants came out of the Green Vision, which was in 2002, 2004. There were a number of people consistently attending the workshops and learned about the value of native plants and their deep roots and so forth. Many people call them weeds because they really don't recognize them because they are different. However, in many subdivisions and industrial parks, there are native plants that are used, beautiful grasses and so forth. I'm not responsible for the ones that are there. I did not choose them. A landscape company that deals in natural or native plants was responsible for that. I'm not responsible for the two buildings that are so close together that these people that live in these buildings do not really have a backyard, which is unfortunate. And the drainage way goes right between those buildings. And that is where the bioswale was put. What did this property look like before? It had hundreds of trees on it. The developer clear-cut the property. The property is close to a tributary of Long Run Creek. Many people could see that there would be a flooding problem since trees absorb a great amount of water. There was also a pond there. That was taken away. I did not push to get native plants on that property. It was an idea that came out of the Green Vision, and many people thought it was a good idea because it sure does help with absorbing water. As far as conservation design is concerned, this is not a conservation design subdivision. It has elements of conservation because they use native plants. I'm also not responsible for the fact that the maintenance or the plantings were not taken care of perhaps in the beginning, or the problems that some residents caused, or the fact that they don't recognize what is a native plant and what is not. I think that subdivision can be a really beautiful one. Too bad the developer went bankrupt and it's been handed down and so forth. I love to see the subdivision come up to a standard with its landscaping that it is due, because the buildings, the construction of the buildings and the buildings are very, very nice. I never particularly liked the way it looked at the road. The berm, the grasses were not the type that should have been planted there. And I think working together, village can come up with some answers. I know you mentioned Julie Crane and planning resources were out there too. I don't even think the berm was done as nicely as it could have been. On the detention pond that's there. So there've been a lot of reasons that the landscaping looks like it does today, but you can't pick one person out and say that person pushed, and that's the reason that this subdivision has problems.
Okay.
So as far as the bioswale is concerned, those grasses were planted were tall, and some people do like the screening, some people don't. But working independently of the other homeowners in that subdivision is not the answer. Everybody has to work together. So I wanted to clear the air on that because I had been accused of pushing native plants, and I did not. There were many people that thought it was a good idea.
Okay.
Therefore,
Thank you. Is there any other old business? Okay, is there any new business? All right, then the next item is executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing land acquisition and employment performance and compensation?
So moved.
First by trustee Yukich,
Second.
second by trustee DeVivo. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee DeVivo?
Aye.
McDaniel?
Aye.
Sable?
yes.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Yukich?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll take 5 and we'll meet in the mayor's office at 9:15.